So, today we're going to be talking about what makes an enchanting first line. This is a lot of stuff that I'm going to repeat myself a lot. Why? Because there are a lot of things that are easily applied to every aspect of writing. So, if you hear some of the same things, please try not to be bored. Alright, and hello to everyone who watches the Adult Writers Club. I'm currently doing this during the Teen Writers Club as well because of the fact that I think this is something everyone can benefit from, irregardless of age. Alright, now, this seems kind of redundant, but one of the first things is going to be, again, in late out early, but I'm just going to say in late because it's the first line. So, with in late, what makes this so interesting about the first line is that you jump into the drama or the action. And I say drama or action because if you're writing a romance novel, obviously it's not going to be action. You're not going to be fighting ninjas in a romance novel, generally. Most of the time, instead it's, oh no, Lord, so-and-so won't look at me. It's dramatic. It's not action-based, and that's okay. Every novel has its own unique things about it, and that's what makes it interesting. So with in late, it helps us feel that there is an interest already. So for example, instead of saying, I was born in 1922 or whatever, you say, oh yeah, we're skipping all the way ahead to my senior year in high school when everything went to crap. That helps make it feel a little bit more rich and exciting. If you say, I was born in such and such time versus this is the year it all went to crap. That's a far more interesting first line because you're like, well, now I want to know what the heck happened. Are you okay? Are you alive by the end of this novel? Now, I will say catching their attention doesn't always mean drama and action. Drama and action is absolutely helped by the in late out early rule, but you can catch their attention with other things, which is where I'm going to move on. So, with catching your reader's attention, how do we catch your reader's attention? First of all, show, don't tell. Avoid info dumping because you don't want it to read like a fact, because a fact isn't going to catch the reader's attention generally, unless it's a peculiar fact, like zombies only eat squirrel brains, did you know? Then you're like, what? Why does this have anything to do with your book? It's like, that is interesting, but it's still kind of showing versus telling because you're demonstrating what's unique about your book specifically. You want to make sure that when you catch their attention, you make them feel like something is different. Now, speaking of which, make sure you do something unique and specific to your world. With that, there are lots of things that are often used in fantasy. For instance, just because primarily almost everyone wants to write fantasy, it's okay if you don't want to write fantasy, but because of that, I'm going to be talking about fantasy tropes. However, I'm also going to be talking about romance tropes, mystery, horror, and sci-fi. If you think of another one, please let me know. Alright, these are the big ones. So there are other ones like Western, but that's very rare. Alright, so moving right along. With fantasy, for instance, we have spells / spell books. We also have magic worlds. We also have creatures. We also have prophecies. I can't spell prophecies today. This is why, as an editor, I always Google words before I say things. And then, of course, damsel in distress. So, if you start your first line in fantasy with spells or a spell book, magic worlds, creatures, prophecies, the damsel in distress, knight in shining armor goes along with that, you're generally going to lose your readers pretty quick because they're like, oh no, it's another one of these stories, rather than being intrigued. So what you got to do is you got to make sure with this first sentence, if you include a magic world, tell us what makes your magic world so gosh darn special that you need to tell us about it. What makes it unique from other magic worlds? What makes the spell book different from other spell books? What makes your magic system different from other magic systems? If you're going to do a creature, make your own creature. Or if you're doing a unicorn, tell us why your unicorn is different. I don't don't know why. Today I'm on a unicorn tangent. If it's a prophecy, tell us why your prophecy is unique and interesting. For example, if Percy Jackson had started with the first line of his prophecy, rather than, you don't want to be a half-blood. Yeah, that was honestly amazing. That Amulet's inlaid out early rule. Yeah, exactly. But the whole reason it works is because it does a unique thing right off the bat. Half-blood. You have no idea what the heck that is, but that's okay. You're going to figure it out. It immediately also drops you inlaid out early. Now, if he had started with the prophecy, because there is a prophecy in it, right? The best way that he could have done this would have been to start with the description of the prophetess, right? Because she's this weird old hippie corpse, right? No one, I don't think, generally with prophecies you have, the old soothsayer or the gorgeous young maiden who mysteriously has powers. It's not a hippie corpse. So if he had started there, I would think he would totally have done something with the hippie corpse, because it would help you be like, you heard a prophecy for what? You trusted it, why? It immediately makes you interested because it's different, it's unique. Or like with the damsel in distress. Is your damsel in distress trying to find her way out of a giant labyrinth because she decided she was going to try to find her own way out and now she's stuck? That's very different. Or is she or is the damsel in distress different and it's actually reversed and the prince is stuck in the tower and the damsel's the one going to save him? Make sure you change the tropes, you change what's going on. Speaking of which, we're going to talk about some of the other tropes that can occur. If you think of some as we go, feel free to mention them. I'm not opposed to having recommendations. So, the romance. We have forbidden love.
Yeah.
Forbidden love. So, the reason this would make a rough first line is because it's hard to make forbidden love unique. You can make it unique, but you got to make sure you make it unique. Because if you're just like, and they were forbade by their parents. We've heard 1,000 of those. What if they were forbade by some ancient prophecy that said the second they have a child, it will destroy the universe? Now that's different.
Each child.
The universe will destroy each child the moment it steps out and touches air.
Anywho, alright, so the next one is the arranged marriage. And obviously, you know why this one's tropey. Because of course it's arranged and then they fall in love anyway. So, the reason this would struggle making a first line is, again, you just have to make it unique. With this arranged marriage, why is it arranged? Is it just because their parents wanted them to? Or is it because the fate of the universe depends on it? Or is it, in which case, I think that one's already been done too, but slightly less. Or they're really rich and they're like, you have to be together because otherwise our whole family fortune will be destroyed. Again, that's kind of very, still been done before. Can anyone think of a way you could make the arranged marriage trope more interesting? Curious. Yes?
You actually, instead of making it like an arranged marriage where it's like, I've never met this guy, you could do it like, you guys knew each other when you were younger. Do you remember him? Oh yeah, I remember him. Did you like him at all? Not really. Okay, you guys could be married, do whatever, and then just decide to be friends as still married.
See, there you go. You could just be like, well, how about you just marry him for like a little bit so that way we can fulfill this prophecy or whatever, and then you can divorce or whatever.
I saw this really kind of unique spin on it, and it's kind of a combination of almost forbidden love and arranged marriage. Not quite. It's being forced to marry someone in because of I don't know, a family member and is in the mafia or something. But you have to talk to that family member in for every year. But you're already married.
I love that. But you're already married. You're like, I have to force you to marry the person that you're already married to. Wait, what?
But it's not the person. It's like an entirely different person that the character's never met before.
Your brother.
Love that.
Your spouse's brother.
It was a really unique spin, and it turned out really well.
I like that. See, it's good to have unique spins. Yes, Michael. Sorry.
Okay, so on the arranged marriages, because the fate of the universe is at their hands, because they have a kid that will save them from this evil guy that comes in 20 years.
2 days. You have 2 days to produce a child. Go. No, that's scary. No, please don't.
No.
Just don't.
I told a couple friends that I was born 9 months early. They heard 9 months and they're like, oh, same day delivery.
All right, this one I'm just gonna say friends to lovers, but it's also known as, the boy next door, the girl next door.
Or enemies to lovers.
Or
could also
enemies
go
to
there.
lovers. Yes, enemies to lovers.
Neighbors to lovers.
Neighbors to lovers, right?
Getting
All right.
flashbacks to that one
So the
house.
reason that friends to lovers and enemies to lovers is so hard, I said lovers. Anyway, so with friends to lovers, you got to make it more unique. Why were they friends? Did they fall out of being friends? Are they still friends? You can make the friendship interesting. Why were they friends? Were they friends because they were in the same D&D group? Were they friends because she secretly dressed as a guy and joined the chess club? I don't know. And so they're friends, but they weren't friends, guy and a girl, and then he finds out she's a girl, and he's like, wow. I don't know. And then with enemies to lovers, I would say with enemies to lovers, just make sure you have a unique spin on how they're enemies. It can't just be like, I am the villain and I will destroy your whole village, but love me anyway. It's like,
Sorry,
no.
no.
No, exactly. I'm sorry, but no. You murdered everyone I care about. Still no.
Yeah.
So,
I don't care if you're pretty. Shut up.
go away, please. But anyway, with these kinds of things, it's important that you come up with unique ways of doing it. All right. Now, horror.
I just
What are
thought
some
of a
tropes you?
line, like
Sorry?
a forced love.
Yes. Oh, yes. Forced love. Okay, that one I feel like should just be in its own box of shame. I'm sorry, because it's generally not well written. It's for the plot, and you can tell it's for the plot because it's not well done generally. Anyway, so with horror, I would say the biggest one is big bad monster. I don't read a lot of horror, but yeah, big bad monster thing that is trying to eat everyone and everything. Yes.
Along with that, psycho killer.
Psycho killer, absolutely. Yep, so psycho killer, serial killer, that kind of thing. Absolutely. So, with horror, I would say you can absolutely have a big bad monster, you can absolutely have a psycho killer, but what makes your psycho killer interesting? What makes your big bad monster so much bigger and badder than other monsters? Or, freaking it's a clown.
That was new.
That was new, right? No one had said, let's make a clown freaky before, right? That was new at the time. It's no longer new. But it's at the time it was new. So you gotta make it your own. You gotta work with it on that. Oh gosh, I am losing track of time. There's so much more to go through, but that's okay. This one's just gonna run a little long. Alright, so we also have mystery. Now, with mystery, in general, we have the classic murder mystery. Then we also have the classic, runaway mystery.
Stealing, the thief, theft mystery.
Theft mystery. And
just
all of these are perfectly acceptable.
crime in general.
But the reason why they get old is because people are like, it's an everyday average murder. It's like, no, what makes this murder interesting? Why did this person kill this person?
They murdered their own kid for ransom.
Wow, that's scary.
They murdered their own kid. I don't know.
To be fair, that there have been crazy cold cases like that. Anyway, moving right along. This is why I don't watch true crime videos anymore, although I still sometimes do because it's interesting, even if it's sad. Anyway, then you have science fiction.
AI taking over. That's
yes.
the major one.
AI takeover, absolutely. And you can do this in a unique way, absolutely. But the problem is, it's been done so many times, it's hard to do it in a unique way because it's been done so many times. Doesn't mean you can't, though. All of these can be reused.
Like the
and redone.
vampire trope.
Vampire trope,
Actually,
absolutely.
did you know that before Stephanie Meyers produced the Twilight trope, or the Twilight books, a good amount of authors were the vampire trope's dead, can't do it.
No, it's true.
It's never
it's
gonna
true.
work.
There was even this poor lady who was trying to get her vampire novel published. She was a guest on Brandon Sanderson's podcast. That's part of the reason I know about it. Writing Excuses, go check it out. Oh my gosh, it was so sad. She was trying to get her vampire novel published, and she had 3 publishers tell her, vampires are dead. And then immediately, 2 months later, Stephanie Meyer was published.
Twilight.
And she's like, excuse you could have been ahead of the curve. I had it first. Like, but sometimes, unfortunately, that's just how time works. So yeah, AI takeover has absolutely been done before. Space war.
Oh yeah.
Also space disease.
Space.
Space in general. Post-apocalyptic.
There we go. Got it.
So we have a lot of these where these are very, very common ones, but that doesn't mean you can't make them unique. You can't make them on your own. Just make sure that when you do them, in your first line, you dictate why it's unique. Why should they listen to your story out of all the ones with spells and magic realms and big bad monsters and psycho killers? Why should they read your story specifically?
Because the apocalypse happened because of my weird experiment.
Don't die.
Because of these dumb cordyceps.
See, I actually saw a post earlier today on Instagram, and it was hilarious because the whole point was, it was something along the lines of, if someone doesn't come back to the past your future self doesn't come back into the past to warn you about something, your decision probably wasn't all that bad. And then someone said, unless it immediately ended the world afterwards, so you can't go back in the past to fix it. I was like, yeah, that's fair. Unless the world blows up. All right.
Like you're fated to die.
The next one is give a sense of your story from the start. So this is just having to do with descriptive words. If your story is going to be more poetic, use more poetic, eloquent words. If your story is going to be more dark and eerie, maybe use words like ghostly, ghastly, ebony, stench instead. Whereas if you're using more of a romance, you might say the aroma of perfume. Like that feels far more romancy. Make sure that they get an idea of what genre they're getting into from the first sentence. They should already know based on reading the back, but let's say they haven't read the back. First sentence should tell you what genre you're in. All right, next point is questions without answers. And this can even just be a generalized question. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, please don't die now. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, who is the killer? It can just be like, why the heck did the killer kill such a nice person? Or it can be something like, for example, I'm actually writing a novel right now, and the whole point is that she's making this meal, and it's like this beautiful garlic butter smell, and it's great. And then the last line in the sentence is, she stirred the brains. And so you're like, pardon, I think I'm going to go vomit. But it leaves you with a question. Why on earth is she making what sounds like gorgeous meal out of brains? What's wrong with her?
Everything.
Yes.
Okay, so the questions without answers, the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, the first book. It's Andy Bell got murdered by her boyfriend Sal Singh or something, and they don't know why Sal did it, or even if he actually did do it.
Right. It's this question of, did he do it?
And it takes place 5 years after.
Ooh, nice. So it's kind of like one of those cold case type things.
Yeah.
I like it. I like
really
it.
cold case.
Really cold case. Yeah, I love that. See, that helps give intrigue, right? Because from the first get-go, you're going, I have so many questions. And so it makes your reader want to keep reading because of the fact that question helps lure them deeper into your story. And the last and final point that I'm going to talk about is try to show how your world is unique. And I know we kind of talked about that with the tropes, but it's different. Because your world, even if it is the modern world that we're living in right now, how is your voice going to describe the modern world differently than someone else's? I can only imagine that if I had you all write it down so you didn't accidentally copy each other by saying it aloud, you would all have a very different description of that snowstorm outside. Why? It's the same dang snowstorm, we're all living in it, but it's because you each have your own unique voice, and you need to bring that to your writing too. You'd have a very unique voice, and you need to make sure that even the most mundane things, anyway, even the most simple things, make sure that you put your own voice into it. Alright. Okay, and as for Adult Writers Club, don't forget to subscribe, and we will have a meeting on, when is it? The 27th of this month. Bye.